Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. I'm Lucy Hodis with CCA and hope you're doing well. Today's webinar is sponsored by ClearSky Technologies. ClearSky is a longtime CCA member. They're one of our industry development partners, and they're a pinnacle sponsor of CCA's 2026 events. Needless to say, they're a friend to CCA, and we're glad to have them with us. We've got a great webinar lined up on ways to efficiently and effectively monetize RCS. Our speakers are all from ClearSky, Ron Willett, VP and General Manager, Chip D'Amato, Director of Business Development, and Wallace Lopez, RCS Brand Identity Manager. If those of you in the audience, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please submit them at any time, and we will get them as we go, or if not, then at the very end. We're also recording the webinar today, and it will be available on CCA's website after it's over. Now, Ron, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Lucy. We appreciate it. And we appreciate everyone coming in and taking the time to join the webinar. We wanted to talk about monetizing RCS. And so you've probably heard a lot about RCS over the last 10 or 15 years. So we'll briefly go over what RCS is. We'll talk about, the monetization of it and how you can be, ahead of the game. And then we'll also talk about creating a carrier RCS agent so that you can talk to your subscribers in a rich and meaningful way. So I'm joined today by a couple people. First of all, in studio with me is Wallace. Wallace, welcome. First webinar from the studio for you, right?
Yep, first one.
And
Glad to be here.
Tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do for ClearSky.
Yeah, I'm Wallace Slopes. I'm a RCS brand identity manager, and I'm responsible for creating RCS agents and making a good experience for the agents itself, for building flows and text messaging on how a brand can communicate with the consumers.
Great. And we'll need that expertise as we move forward, not only building agents for carriers, but if you saw the press release yesterday with Big Boy Media Group, which is our marketing agency, we're building RCS agents for their customers as well. So RCS agent builds are going to be a big part of what we're offering. And also joined all the way from Lewiston, Idaho, Chip D'Amato, a recent, not even recent anymore, is it, Chip? You've been here for, what, 8 months or so?
Yeah. I think it seems a lot longer than that, but that's a good thing, I guess, right? And so
Yeah.
coming all the way from north central Idaho. So happy to be here. Director of Business Development. I've been here about close to 9 months at ClearSky. Previous to that, was on the carrier side for 32 years. So one of my, I guess, projects is to help develop and strategically develop products that carriers can, that are practical and make sense for carriers, understanding that side of their challenges. So hopefully that's what we've done here. I think we've got a really good product that we're going to kind of walk through today. So glad to be here.
Great. And so one of the first questions that we're going to ask is, or answer, I should say, is what is RCS? So I keep talking to a lot of carriers that say, we need RCS. In some cases, our customers are asking for RCS. We know that AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon have already launched RCS. And so, we wanted to talk about what is RCS from our perspective. So Chip, if you want to grab the RCS core part and talk a little bit about what we do there.
Yeah, without getting into too many details, I think one of the things we established right on is that messaging in general, or that engagement piece of messaging, has kind of been something that there's two sets of goggles looking at it, right? There's the carrier viewpoint, and then there's kind of everybody else. And so there's been a lot of confusion. It's been talked about for so long. Things have changed a while, several times, right? It's a continuing dynamic, evolving product, right? So where are we on this, and what is it, and what does it really mean? And ran into a lot of carriers that said, "Hey, we've already got RCS. What are you talking about?" And I think there's some confusion because you've got the guest cloud and so forth. So RCS, again, looking at it through the goggles of a carrier and what to expect there is, in my viewpoint, it's kind of a great pivot mode, because previous to RCS, that messaging engagement ecosystem wasn't really kind of taken advantage of or optimized. It was a thing, right? It was, hey, we got to give them messaging. So here we go. And then you get into the A2P side, and I think we'll talk about that a little bit more. And what does that mean? And then how does RCS really kind of bounce on top of that and take it over the edge? So RCS being that thing that really is a positive at a positive point right now, and establishing that onboarding process has been a little bit difficult, or because there's so many players involved. And I think we've put together a little bit of a streamlined system there for onboarding. And what RCS means to people is it's not really messaging. I don't consider it messaging. It's a way of engagement and the next generation of let's even go as far as saying some advertisement, right? So how do you take advantage of that? Why is it important? So I think that's going to be a big part. That's step one, right? Getting on board. How do we get RCS on board? Step one. That's the basics. Now, how do we establish what we're doing after that and for a long-term sustainable solution? And that's what we built as a plan for that.
Right. And so RCS Core, we have the agreement with Google. They let us pick a carrier. We pick Strata Wireless. Strata Wireless uses our hosted entitlement server. And using that hosted entitlement server, we went to Strata Wireless. We got into their Apple carrier bundle process. We gave them everything that they needed to do, step-by-step instructions on how to turn that in. And for the last, I don't know, 2-3 weeks, whatever it's been, maybe month, we did have Apple certify that carrier bundle as a production carrier bundle, and so it's ready to go. We'll see when Apple OTAs that carrier bundle, but what we're hearing is it'll be 4 to 6 weeks. And then we'll have our first carrier on Android and Apple using RCS in their systems. And so, as Chip said, right now there's a guest cloud. You might have Android working in that. But what we're doing with RCS Core is making it so that you have your own Google-specific Jibe instance cloud, so that RCS will work in your network. And think about it from a P2P perspective. That's someone with an Android talking to someone with an Apple phone, or Android to Android. That RCS is going to work with our RCS Core. Then you get to RCS for Business. And for that one, we have agreements with, all the normal players: Infobib, Cinch, Cineverse. I'm sure I'm missing some, Cisco. So we have all the agreements with them. And so as soon as RCS gets on Android and Apple in your networks, we're going to have RCS for Business ready to go and ready to send to you. Cinch in particular and Infobib, they ask all the time, probably every 2 weeks, when are we going to launch? When can we start sending RCS for Business? And this is messages that your customers are already getting, likely from A2P, but they're going to want to use that rich communication service. If you, to Chip's point, don't want to call it messaging, it's that rich communication services with their customers that might be on your network. So we have all that ready to go for RCS for Business, and then we have the RCS agents.
Yep. And I like some Chip said about the quality of the RCS and the agent, and I think that's it's a big opportunity right now to jump this huge gap of improvement where your messaging and your communication with your consumers is just improves way better. Is the way the flow is set up, the way your communication with everybody, the way that the messages it's sent is just it's a huge jump into a better quality of communication. So
Right.
The agent itself, I think we can break it out in two parts to understand. First, you have the agent, which is just like a contact on your phone. If you look at it, you'll see it later, but you can see it, and you can see it's verified by Google. You know where it's coming from. You have a good relationship with the brand. So you create a brand, you have a verification. That brand it's verified, it's secure, it can send messages. And then you go into the experience, which it is the message itself. How is the end user experience that conversation with the agent? So that's why I like agent experience. You can put on one word, but you can also separate. First, you have the agent, and then you have the experience. And that's what I think RCS has to bring in the table, which is huge. It's a very good way to improve messaging right now.
And we're going to show that. So we built a ClearSky RCS agent, and we're going to show you that in just a few minutes. But first, we wanted to talk a little bit about the past and what happened before. So with A2P, what happened, as a lot of you know, we first started getting calls for A2P really because of things like American Idol, right? Ryan Seacrest and Brian Dunkelman, I think, was year one, right? And then he left. But anyway, Ryan Seacrest would say, text this for your favorite artist. And people in the regional carrier space could not do that. And so if someone, one of their friends had AT&T or Verizon, they could text to vote, but someone, from a regional carrier could not. And so we got calls saying, hey, we need to turn this on. We need this to work. And at that time, it wasn't a mentality of how can us, the carrier, make money off of A2P. The mentality was we need to be on the same, the same playing field as the tier ones. We can't have someone's friend sitting next to them that can do something that they can't do. And so in the beginning, when the earth was cool and all, in the beginning, carriers did this for that reason. And a lot of times carriers would pay for A2P. They would pay for that service. And then, life happened, a decade went by, and we, as the providers of this A2P, started making money from the aggregators. They started paying for those messages to go through. And it was really, 2020, 2021, where we looked at the money that we were making from the aggregators, and it was sustainable enough where we don't have to charge carriers anymore. We can now share revenue with carriers. And so that's what we started doing. And because of that, that's what the competition started doing. That's what the ecosystem started doing, is now writing checks to carriers for this A2P. And so what we're trying to do now is just say, hey, we've learned from that. And now we want carriers with RCS not to have to wait a decade until they're starting to make money. We want them to start making money now. And Chip, we want to also come up. Chip has a good thing that he likes to say about, it's hard as a regional carrier to put on a napkin, hey, we're going to give you this device at this price and take a hit, then we're going to build 4G, 5G. We're going to do all this at $30, $40 ARPU. How do you stay in business that way? And so what we also are looking for, Chip, is additional revenue streams, right?
Yeah, one of the things, going back to say that American Idol thing, which, God, you just took me way back, because I remember my wife yelling about that, right? But anyways, we didn't understand it. We didn't take advantage of it. And it's not just about making money. In today's more volatile, I guess, market, and people switching and to different carriers and looking for reasons to go to another carrier and so forth. In the RCS mode too, we're running into that. If Apple can't talk to Android, and you can't get A2P messages, or you can't get RCS for business messages, then your customers are upset, right? And that gives them one more reason to go somewhere else. In addition to that, too, right, with RCS, and what Ron and Wallace were talking about is with the agent, we want to give the ability to the carrier to be able to communicate for support and loyalty and trusted value from a verified message coming from, and I've got case after use case after use case that I can kind of give, not today, but of how you can use that for those particular things. So it's really got a lot of different points to it, and we missed out. When I say we, when I was a carrier, we missed out. We were doing things like signing people up as A2P businesses, right, to do messaging, and we were controlling it from them at Inland. But the point was, we didn't even set them up as A2P carriers. And then some of the companies that we were with really didn't understand it either. And so we got lost in the shuffle. Well, just like American Idol, right? Regional businesses, regional carriers, regional customers that want to be with regional carriers, without getting into RCS and understanding the whole ecosystem of what I call engagement, right? They're going to get left behind, and it's going to give another reason to go somewhere else. And as you said, Ron, we need in the regional carrier space, we need more revenue models. And I think what we're doing creates another revenue model. And again, we're not going to have a ton of time to go into that today, but we've got a pretty good outline on that and a pretty good understanding both of the market as well as the ecosystem to be able to develop that for carriers. But there's a time crunch too, right? We've got to get
Yep.
moving on this quickly. And I won't go into that because I'll let you guys go into the next slide.
Well, I'll go into it a little bit. I mean, the time crunch really comes down. A lot of the time crunch comes down to Apple, and so if Apple is ready and willing to OTA devices instead of pushing out a carrier bundle, that'll make a big difference. And so far, they have leaned that way in discussions. But really, they do 2 carrier bundle launches a year, right? So you really need to be up, ready, and have a production carrier bundle ready to go by no later than June, so that you can get RCS running this year. And we'll push on everyone that we can push on to get it done sooner. With Strata, we'll get done sooner. With some of our others that are using our hosted entitlement server, it'll get done sooner. But that's because we've done all the testing with Apple already, and you'll still have to do your own testing. But yeah, there is definitely a time crunch. One of the things that we wanted to show here is just how RCS is better than just regular text messaging. And so in my daily life, I get RCS messages now too. I talk a lot about having 6 kids, and so I buy a lot of things from Best Buy. And within 2 minutes the other day, I bought something, and I got a Best Buy short code from 332211. And it gave me some information about the product that I bought. And then right after that, I bought something else and I got an RCS message. So it was kind of cool to see the difference. And you can see it here on your screen. When you get an SMS short code, you don't know where that's coming from. You don't know if that number is really the number of the business. You don't know what those links mean. And in today's world, you can click a link and next thing you know, $10,000 has gone from your bank account if you have $10,000 to begin with in your bank account. But yeah, so if you look at the RCS for business side, I mean, that is very nice. That's actually an example of Google's. I went to the Google New York City tour for RCS, and that's their RCS that they have. So you came in and there was a video. We'll show you in a second how we can integrate it to Maps. We can integrate it to your calendar. And so it's just been really cool to go to the agent and build one from scratch so that we can get an idea of really what the capabilities are. And I'm seeing it in my daily life with things like, the LA Rams use RCS now, F1 uses RCS, and just others that use RCS instead of short codes. So we're seeing a big difference.
Hey, Ron, real quick, just to add on to that, I was reading something last night, and for anybody that thinks RCS isn't here, there's a healthcare organization that right now is sending out 30 million RCS messages a month, right? So,
Walgreens is a big one. Walgreens is a shining example of RCS. If you have gotten a Walgreens message lately, they've done some really big things with RCS. Yeah, very cool. All right, how RCS is monetized, and this is kind of what we were talking about there. I'll do the first one, and then Wallace, you can talk about the second one, and Chip, you can go into some enterprise stuff. The first one is RCS for business, and we already talked about that, but there is a revenue share immediately. Once we get you turned on, we will talk to the aggregators and we'll have them start sending that RCS for business to your subscribers. And when that happens, there'll be a revenue share between us, the carrier, and Google. And so we'll lay that revenue share out for you, and you'll get a check for us at the end of every month, like many of you do right now for A2P. There's no money up front for the RCS for business. It just is a check that you get at the end of each month. That has that. We do all the vetting of all the campaigns for you. We make sure that they're all within standards and working and delivered by Google, and we go from there. So you'll get all those reports and checks at the end of each month for RCS for business. Obviously, it's going to continue to grow as we get further into the year. And then we expect 2027 in the US to be, well, really Black Friday this year, and 2027 to be really big for RCS as more brands get involved. Wallace, the carrier experts, the carrier agents are your expertise. You could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think this one is very interesting on what carriers can do with the agent itself. I think, I mean, the sky's at the limit on why we are building our agent. I think how many times we talk about it, like what do we want to present, and the idea is just changes all the time because you have just unlimited options on what you want to do. You want to promote, you want to upgrade, you want to tell about services, you want to do deals, or you want to send messages for new upcomers into the carriers. But the huge benefit here is that you can create a direct communication with your subscriber, right? You can just engage your subscriber anytime you want. You send a message. You can pretty much send anything you want, and you don't rely on making big marketing campaigns that you need to go to TV or do an ad or something. You have it right there on the phone, so your subscriber will be able to see it. We'll be able to interact and just create a better relationship with the carrier itself. So I think that brings meaning and purpose of having the RCS because you have a direct communication, right? So you can talk, you can go to customer support, you can order something, or you can go to your login and pay your bill right there within your app. So I mean, that's huge.
And we're working on connecting RCS agents to network APIs. And so when you see our ClearSky RCS agent, what we really want is for you to start thinking about use cases. So we've been talking to Strata Wireless about some use cases, and customer support comes up, or they have other lines of business like landline or broadband, and we can go in and we can talk about the other lines of business that they have. And the cool thing about RCS that we don't talk about as much, but it's really one of the most powerful things, is just how it looks in your inbox because it has the logo. It's verified, so they know that they're talking to you. And if any of you have tried to get your subscribers to for government purposes to send you how they're using their free or discounted internet or whatever it is, it's difficult when you're just sending it from a short code because they just don't trust it. But when you see that logo and they know it's coming from you, and maybe that's the first message they get when they onboard to talk about what their plan is and all of that, then it's it's going to be really cool to be able to see that. And then Chip, we can also take it a step further into enterprises.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on and on about that carrier agent thing and how great that is, and I got a million examples of that. But I get terribly excited about that, right? This is kind of really cool stuff. And then take it a step further, because what I think, as carriers, a lot of times new products and new services get integrated and everybody busts, and there's resources and everybody's working hard to get it on. And then it lays there, right? You take a deep sigh and then it lays there, and then you're off to the next thing and you forget about, oh God, how am I going to make money? And what am I going to do with it, right? And so that's one of our goals really, is to kind of take it for sustainability and use this as a product value and an advantage moving forward. Just an example of that next step, right, is I've got a friend that has a few regional appliance stores. And he was all excited because he integrated with his CRM and he can send a text message after they get through the POS system. And I went, really? You think that's really cool? And he goes, yeah. And I said, well, what if you now sent them everything about it, and you've got a 4th of July sale, and by the way, you could get this one to go with it if you have any questions, and you can interact with that person right after the POS they establish it, right? He goes, oh my God, how do I do that? Well, that's kind of what we want to do, right? And I said, well, with RCS, we can build that for you. Or, your regional carrier, if they want to if they're involved with us, they can do that for you and manage that for you. And then you've got a whole ecosystem of this stuff. So, and you've got a customer there that is an enterprise or a business customer that's now paying you to do that for you. You're giving them something, and your customers aren't getting left behind, and the regional business. So it's I I could talk about it for about 2 hours because I got a million ideas because it excites me.
I've been on some of those phone calls when you've
Yeah.
done that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So
that's
anyway,
when I really enjoy that you're 3 hours behind and it's 9 o'clock at night. My wife's like, "What are you still talking to him for?" But yeah, no, there is, and at the coming CCA show in Louisville, we're going to be again showing this demonstration, showing what we've done with the carriers. The agent will do nothing but get better between now and then. We're continuing to build. We're continuing to talk. Go ahead and share your screen now. But what we're going to do is we're going to show you the ClearSky agent. And again, what we want to do when we do this is to show you kind of what it looks like, but then I want you to think about how you would use it as a carrier. So, we can integrate into maps and all of that. So the first thing, don't do anything here. You can see that, there's some short codes, right? So 97270-32665, who knows what those are, right? We don't know as a consumer that is who we think it is. And so now you can see where it says ClearSky or Strata or United Airlines, which are really big into RCS nowadays. But go ahead and click the ClearSky RCS agent, and then Wallace, why don't you walk us through it a little bit?
Just before we jump in, one thing to add here is it's so easy to search, right? You can see the logo there, you can see the name. So you can just imagine how your inbox will be with RCSs in the future. So you see the logo, you see the name, it's easier to scroll. You don't like, who sent me a message? What short code was that? So it's just a way better experience. So let's see our agent. So first here, let me just jump into the agent itself, right? You can see we see our name, our logo, and it talks about who are we in ClearSky and what our RCS does. And then you have your regular website contact, your phone number, your customer support email, or any email you want to use. So this is just like your contact, right? So this, you can see it, it's verified, it's secure, it's a real contact, and it's a real business that sends you a message. So on the security part of RCS, this is huge because you're receiving a message that it's from a real business.
And so we see this as the first message that your new subscriber gets could be an RCS message, right? And it comes in and then they can see it. And then, what you want that first message to say is up to you. So here's the beginning of our message that of course has a video of me because apparently I like to use the webinar studio a lot since we pay for it. But what else you got?
And you can play around. You can make the video bigger if you want to watch the full video. You can make your description to read if it's too short, so you can understand what's going on into the rich card. And then you have your options. So let's go to the CCA option that
hey,
we
Wallace,
have.
real quick, Wallace, one other thing that I think kind of might be important is the fact that not only can you have, it's secure and you got trust in it, but you never have to leave that particular message and go to a website, which people don't like to do. So I think that's critical too, in that security and trusted source there.
Yep.
Yep.
And we'll show some of that right now on this. So
yeah, you can see the in-app native. So let's say we're going to the CCA, and what I want you guys to think about is what story do you want to tell your subscribers, right? So here's some useful information that you can add into the RCS to make the experience even better. So we're going to the CCA. One thing that we need to think about, where's the location, right? So you can add the location there. It opens your Google Map or your Apple Map.
12-hour and 17-minute drive, and we're there.
If you have electric car, drive by itself, it's pretty easy, but I mean, you just need to charge. But you see, you can share your locations. It's easier to find, so it's very useful for that. You have other options like save the day, when we're gonna meet. So if you click yes here, it saves straight to your calendar. So it's very important. It's just useful information that the customer don't need to leave the messaging environment to do all of that, to go to a website, to look for the date, to save it to the calendar. It's just everything's just very good integrated.
And go to schedule a meeting and you'll see they are going off to a website, but if you'll notice, it's still within the messaging ecosystem, right? So that messaging ecosystem is there, and this is booking a meeting with us, but it allows them to go there and do what they need to do. And then when he X's out of that, boom, you're right into the messaging space again. And the cool thing is the carousel. So if you slide through there, so here's one that we kind of did a card for CCA, and you can take them through that.
Yeah, you can see the agenda, what we're going to be covering in CCA, what's the dates, the time. So if the user don't have a computer in their hands and they are CCA, they don't remember what the schedule is. They already have the message. Oh, I received a message from ClearSky about CCA. I know there's agenda there, so I'm just going to go on the message and I can open it anytime. You can have general information, book a hotel if you need. It brings you right to the website so you can plan your trip. So you see, you just have very useful
And
information.
become a member. So
And
you
become a
got
member, which is
you
very
got to say
important.
that one again. Yeah. So that's obviously very important. So yeah, I think it's cool that you can do all that. Go back to the podcast one for a second. Not that it's anything different. It's just I want to promote the podcast. No, not really. But if you go there, see it goes right to the YouTube and it shows you everything that you need to see there. And then if you clicked on that, obviously it would go to that
The video,
podcast, the episode. So that's where we are with that. And then you had some for carrier solutions as well, some another carousel that would come up. And so as you're thinking about this again, you can see there the call us directly.
Yep.
So, you could put something there where it's just going to give you a phone call and call. Sorry. And so just be thinking about things that you can use. And we can integrate this through network APIs to billing. One thing that we're going to do in the future is integrate it to, let's say that you use our total traffic manager or you use something else that monitors data. What if someone is going over their data plan every month for 3 months? Then that system will automatically call out through API to the RCS, and we'll send that subscriber an RCS to say, hey, we've noticed that you keep going over your data plan. Here's some data plans that are better for you for what you're doing right now. And then you get the carousel and it shows them different plans. You could also, let's say it's Black Friday and Apple's having a sale on headphones, right? You can push that RCS, show them the sale of headphones to only people with an Apple phone, because we would know that.
Yeah.
And then tell them about the discount, and then they could actually order it. It could go into your billing system and know who that person is, what that address is. And then we can say, do you want the nearest store location to you, or do you want it delivered, and put that charge right on their bill if we want to do that. So just lots of different things that you can do in that carrier RCS. And this is some things that we talked about with Strata.
Yeah, here's an idea that we can give about carrier. So Strata, for example, one of the carriers that we are working with, what do they offer, right? They offer residential services and businesses service. So you can put your services, what you do, and things that you can provide to your subscribers. So let's, for example, see internet, right? I want to buy internet. I already have a phone with Strata, so I want to now do a bundle and I want to have residential. So you can go straight to the website and showcase all your products. Or you can want a landline. Is this possible? So you can showcase that and tell your subscribers what are you offering.
And then if you do some sort of bundle, right, we could create a different website that it takes you to, or a different form that it takes you to give you that right off the bat.
Yeah, you can do deals, what devices are on sales, for example, and then you send the RCS, the customer can come here, open up the page and see what's for sale. So you can do that on Black Friday, any other day. You can run different campaigns. So it's very very easy to make, because you just create you can put on your website, or you create a logo, you create a picture, and then you can post onto your RCS. So you can always be changing your agent interaction. Doesn't need to stay like this forever, because you have the ability to change anytime you want. So if you want to change the logo, put a different sale, put a different date, or put different options, it's pretty easy to change. So you can always keep your subscriber engaged and different information they can be receiving throughout the year.
I'd like to, yeah. So you guys are killing me right now, man, because I got a million of these ideas and I wasn't going to get into them. And you guys, I'm getting excited sitting here, right? But I want to mention something because, I've said on the other end of these webinars a lot of times, or dealt with with vendors and new products and stuff. And it looks really cool, right? You're going, hey, everybody gets excited. But then you get down to it and you go, God, how do I do that? Right? It looks a little more complicated. And I see there's some questions in here that I think we'll get to. One thing to keep in mind, I think that's one of the goals here too, is that we don't want to leave it laying there. And we are set up to where we have the support. Well, I shouldn't say we, but we've got support. We want to make sure that a carrier can do this, and that's why we're actually basically laying out the whole ecosystem, and we've got people that can help walk through those steps to get to that third stage where things are really starting to happen, right? So
Yeah. When you do RCS with ClearSky, or if you do it direct with Google, we do include a tool that allows you to do one of two things. You can either have someone on your staff get with Wallace and learn how to build RCS agents, and we can teach you how to do that, and they can learn that themselves. Or you can just use Wallace and his team in the RCS brand identity space to just say, hey, we want you to do it, and here's the things that we want to happen. Here's what we want to see. And then, you'll sit down with the carriers and just talk about that like we've started to do with Strata.
Yeah, it's just like writing a script, right? What story do you want to tell your subscribers? What do you want to sell it? What do you want to present? What experience do you want them to have? So RCS is basically just a better way to communicate with everybody. You have so many options. You can showcase so many different things. You have visual images, visual videos, so you can explore everything you want to make the experience way better and enhance it.
Yeah. So we did, I'll read some questions here and there. We're not going to do, we'll do question and answer time or whatever if we need to, but just as they come in, I can definitely ask some questions. And so I have this mouse here there we go. If you were talking to a skeptical regional operator CEO, why should they prioritize RCS now versus wait? So it's almost like the A2P discussion before is, there's a couple different reasons. Number one is the basics. You want it turned on because T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T have it. You don't want someone sitting there and going, what happens to me a lot is I have sons that play baseball and I get videos, but if I get them from someone on an Android, I'm like, hey, send that via Facebook Messenger because I can't see this. It looks horrible. RCS is going to help solve a lot of that problems. It's going to help solve a lot of your group messaging problems. And when I talk to regional carriers, they get a lot of questions about that group messaging and how it can work better. And so that's the reason to prioritize it now. The other reason to prioritize it now is that Apple's going to be the long pole in the tent. There's no doubt about that, whatever you do there, because, and they should. They have a carrier bundle. It needs testing. You're going to have to test it. And then they sit there and they decide when they're going to OTA or when they're going to send out a carrier bundle. So you need to get in that queue and that process as quickly as possible for that. But then the other thing is just all the other stuff that we've been talking about. I mean, we really believe that enabling RCS is the very first basic thing that you can do. But building this agent and now being able to use the agent to communicate to your subscribers with the help of Wallace and his team, it's going to make a big difference on ROI when you're selling stuff. It's going to make a big difference on your other business units being able to market with them. So when you have something that's this powerful coming into the ecosystem, you really want to take advantage of it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, Ron, I think we kind of answered that question a little bit too, to some degree earlier about how, if you're not there, and I believe at some point in time, the guest cloud is going to go away, right? And
No,
so,
it is. It's already gone
yeah.
away for some nations in the Caribbean, and we could see it going away for sure.
Yeah, so then you're really going to be kind of left behind, right? So you don't want your customers not having that ability and then having another excuse to go to another carrier because they can't get RCS message or they can't communicate Apple to Google very easily, or some of your chain group messages are kind of all cattywampus. I don't know if that's a word or not, but
It is today,
it's
Chip.
critical. Yeah, you like it? That's an Idaho word, man.
Yeah, it's great. So the second question is, if I'm a regional operator with limited resources, what are the first two steps we should take? Where do we actually start? That's a good question as well. So the way that we've designed RCS with Google is Google's connected to a piece of equipment in ClearSky, and there's just one connection there. And then what we do is we have our hosted entitlement server that we can use from our good friends at RENA DCC. So we have a hosted entitlement server. And that entitlement server already has a certified production carrier bundle from Apple. So if a new carrier comes in and uses our own hosted entitlement server, and you would just use it for RCS if you wanted to, right? Just for RCS, then that's going to have the same URL, whether it's Strata Wireless, whether it's Inland Cellular, whether it's Appalachian, it doesn't matter. It's going to have the same URL. And so then that way we can get it done, hopefully real quick with Apple. If you want to use your own entitlement server, that is fine too. We will go out and connect to that entitlement server with the things we need to do. And then to Google, we kind of normalize everything that comes in. So as far as Google goes, it looks the same when it's coming from ClearSky. And we wanted to do that on purpose so that we can make it as easy as possible to get things running. So the first steps you should take is give us a call, and then we will get you a contract from Google. We will get you your Google carrier instance up and running, and then we'll work with you to get Android and Apple up, and we'll go from there. From a technical perspective, it is not a difficult it's not a difficult lift at all.
Every time for those regional carriers too, we all know that Apple is kind of difficult, and everybody gets a little nervous around the Apple bundles and the testing and so forth. The nice thing is that we've kind of gone through that, and we've got some support in place to help walk through at least that initial stage of that, and some placeholders in place to help with that, understanding that that's a difficult process sometimes. So, as noted before, that's the long pull, but I think we've got some support in place to help walk through that.
And then we'll read one more question. I think we have a couple more, but I know we're running close on time. So for carriers that missed early A2P monetization, what's the one decision you would prioritize for new messaging channels? So we recognize that there was a lot of A2P revenue that was lost from the carriers because of the mindset going in, which the mindset going in really was that the mindset going in was that they wanted to just be on an even playing field with the tier ones, and that worked, right? We did get all the carriers, and other people in the ecosystem got the carriers where they could get this A2P, but they weren't thinking of this as a revenue channel. And so we want to change that mindset right away with RCS. Go into it thinking, yes, my carriers need this. Yes, my carriers need to be on the same playing field as my subscribers need to be on the same playing field as the tier ones. But I also want to make sure that I'm not leaving money on the table. And that's why we have the RCS for business already thought out and ready to go. We have the RCS carrier agents with Wallace and his group building those for you so that you can use those to talk to your subscribers. And then we also have the RCS agents where you can go off to enterprises, sports teams, big events in your area. Chip, I know there's a big rodeo in Idaho every year, right? Where they probably would be very interested in creating an RCS to help with that event.
Yeah, if you remember, we got started on that. We've got the NEI World Series in town at Lewis Clark State College in May, and they're very fired up to be able to be an RCS agent. I mean, again, we're running out of time, but there's a million different examples of it. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to be able to kind of try to help carriers with this. I'm excited that there's an opportunity for regional carriers for some additional revenue, right? That hasn't been there. I call it auxiliary revenue, but it's there. And the national carriers are making a lot of money on it. And it's time the regional carriers get in that game, and hopefully we can guide them in that direction.
Yeah, and the last question, are there specific use cases where RCS drives revenue for regional operators, or do they just need to keep up with the tier ones from a marketing perspective? And that answer is, do you have a regional sports team? Do you have some regional businesses? Do you have regional events? Those things are going to be just shooting fish in a barrel, as they say, to go to them and say, hey, we can create an RCS agent for you so that you can use this to market. And oh, by the way, also for all your wireless needs and for everything else, we can help with that too. And it just gets your foot in the door for the RCS agents, but then you're also able to sell them so much more. So we'll be at the CCA in Louisville, and you can come and talk to us. I think we're having a party the night before, and then we'll be talking for a couple days at our booth. And so just come by. You can see the demo live. We'll all have our phones and we'll all have it ready. And ask us any questions you want, and we'll be more than happy to answer. And Lucy, we want to thank you and the CCA for allowing us to come and talk today.
Thanks so much, guys, for being here, for sponsoring the webinar. We really appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing everyone in Louisville, as you said. Thanks for including CCA as part of the demo. That was pretty cool to see, and a nice plug for our show, so appreciate that. Thanks again. This concludes our webinar, and we hope everybody has a great day. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.